Hello everyone, I hope that you're all doing well. In this video, I would like to talk about a recently published book written by George Saunders. The title of the book is A Swim in a Pond in the Rain, in which 4 Russians give a masterclass on writing, reading, and life. And there are several reasons why this book has become important for me in my mind. In addition to very helpful discussions on the value of literature, short stories, and art in general, and in addition to talking about necessary skills, what does it take to be able to understand and enjoy a piece of literature? This book is also relevant in our thinking about taste. What is involved in being able to not just like something, but prefer a piece of art over something else, over another piece of art. That process of development that allows one person to be able to enjoy short stories, Russian short stories from the 19th century. So I'm very interested in understanding taste, whether taste is something that we should think about as fixed or changeable. If it is changeable, is it so slow that it changes almost in a way that is not noticeable? Its relationship to the unconscious and the conscious thinking, and the distinction between generality, general knowledge, abstract knowledge, knowledge that is not about specific people, but generally about everyone, that can be applied to large populations of people. In technical language, we call that the nomothetic approach to research in social science and psychology. An approach to research that is interested in generality, not particulars. On the other hand, we have the idiographic approach to research, which emphasizes particularity. It doesn't want to have knowledge about or pursue knowledge that is general, but it would be satisfied and it would be fulfilled, that kind of research, idiographic approach to research. It would be satisfied by understanding a single case, an individual, or maybe a situation, a group. So it has emphasis on particularity. And there's a lot of emphasis in this book, A Swim in the Pond in the Rain. Lots of emphasis on the value of particularity, how good art, a good piece of writing, a good story brings into our view a particular case, not general, not abstract, not theoretical or philosophical discussion, but one person, one specific concrete individual. That's when a work of art is successful, for the most part. So with that in background, let me go through my notes, a review. If you'd like to read the full version of my review, I'll provide a link below. This is more of a summary and relatively improvised version of my review. So the book contains a selection of 7 short stories, plus commentary and analysis by the author, Saunders. In the commentaries, he reflects on what these stories are about, what are they trying to present to us, how they are told, to the form that they take, and what makes them good or great. What is it that makes a story great, and how that elements of greatness show up in these particular stories, and what we can learn from them as readers and as writers, but also as living human beings. Out of the 7 stories, 3 are by Anton Chekhov, 2 by Leo Tolstoy, and the other 2 are by Ivan Turgenev and Nikolai Gogol. The book is based on a university course on 19th century Russian short stories that Saunders has been teaching for 20 years. In the introductory chapter, so very early on in the book, Saunders draws attention to the small number of the stories selected in this volume. And he compares it to the number of stories that he uses in teaching in his classrooms. And he says that usually I use 30 stories, and compared to that 30, here we have only 7 stories. And these 7 stories are not even meant to represent the varieties, the diversities within the genre. But by drawing attention to the number of selections, the limits, the finitude of this project, this book, what is contained in the book, the limits of this literary tour that we are undertaking, by pointing out that limit, he's highlighting the significance and the necessity of making decisions. And he is anticipating, foreshadowing a central theme in his commentaries. The topic of decision and taking responsibility for decisions is central throughout his analysis. And in fact, he argues that the essence of artistic creativity is to be able to take responsibility for decisions in the artistic creation. And as we begin, as we read the book, we join the author, we join Saunders, we begin taking note of how these 4 masters make decisions. the decisions that are involved in their storytelling. And this is a point that can help us understand the necessity, the usefulness, maybe not necessity, but why commentaries are useful. A good commentary helps us detect artistic decisions and understand them in terms of the reason behind them. Understanding is not finished when we reach the end of a story. When we reach the end of a book, we still want to think about it. We are not done understanding. Parts of the story might stay with us, presenting puzzles or problems. Why is it raining, for example? Why is it raining in the final scene of the Gooseberries, story number 6 in this collection? Saunders shows us that it is possible to read skillfully, to acquire the skill to engage with and enjoy these stories. He is especially skilled at bringing out the structure or the skeleton of the story, each of the stories. He rewrites in his commentaries, he rewrites each story in its outline and asks, which part is the main part? Which part of the story? What is the heart of the story? What is the engine at the center? The main reason, primary reason why the story was written in the first place, and going through the outline, asking how each part is helping that heart of the story. How is it serving the main purpose? The more we think about these questions, the more we become aware of each of the stories as one organized totality. We realize each story as one organism, one living organism. Saunders emphasizes causal connections among different parts of the story. So how one part is causally connected to the other events, and how these causal connections reveal something about the world that is being revealed to us, that is being presented to us in each of the stories. So each of the authors is not just telling us a story. That story is a window into a world that the author, each one of those 4 authors, are showing to us. Although the book is about appreciating literature, the question of taste is not directly addressed, but I think it is quite relevant. That's why I'm talking about it here. We read about what we like in a text and why we might like a text, the features of a text that make the text likable, make a story likable. But we don't read about how we come to a position, how we move into a position that enables us to enjoy a text. In other words, the question is, how do we develop taste? Presumably good taste. Toward the end of the book, Saunders writes, at the end, many authors end like this, with this kind of note. He writes, I hope you've enjoyed this walk through these Russian stories as much as I have, or even half as much. So this note here especially, it acknowledges that some of the readers might not like these stories. And throughout the chapters, we continually pay attention to what makes these stories compelling, what makes these stories truthful, consistent, correct, and likable. What we find in the stories, as we confront each of the stories, what we find is not just subjective feeling that, oh, I have good feelings when I read this story, and that's it. That's the end of the story. I have no further comments on this story. That's not the case. What we pay attention to is not just that, oh, I feel good. I feel something. I feel moved, or I feel open, or I feel like I have to suspend my judgments. It's not just a subjective feeling privately experienced that is impossible to express. But what we face and what we have in front of us, what causes our thoughts and intuitions, are the characteristics of the stories. There's something that is in front of us that is the object of our experience. That the story, the text, the world that is being presented to us. This apparent paradox of taste. What is the apparent paradox of taste? Taste is something that corresponds to a work of art. It's not about my taste. It's something private, something only subjective. It is about the work of art. And taste is something that we could reason about, we could defend, potentially, especially if we practice it, if we practice reflecting, thinking about it. On the other hand, taste is something that seems subjective and it seems final. It doesn't seem like you can argue with it. I think this paradox can be resolved once we acknowledge that taste can be trained. Taste can change. Not only that taste can be trained, but that we ought to take responsibility for our taste, to spend time and energy for our tastes, to find reasons for the things that we like, the things that we enjoy. Not in order to cultivate one correct taste that is universally applied and anybody who doesn't agree with it is wrong. No, we cultivate taste and a reflective taste, a taste that can express itself with reason, in order to draw connections, 2 kinds of connections. First, connections with other people whose taste could differ from us, but we could still talk with them because we have a language that can talk about. It's not just private, subjective. We have a language that can connect one taste to another, compare, contrast different tastes. And second, the second kind of connection is a connection within me, within you, within a person that enables the person to think more clearly, critically, and responsibly about our intuitions, about those subjective feelings. And I think even though this book doesn't make claims that it is enabling us, training us into making those connections, but it can. I think it is a valuable contribution and a guide in becoming more reflective, critical, and responsible in relation to our taste. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and I will speak with you in the next video.